Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Uber to the Pits. I am joined by co-driver of the number 98 Hyundai Veloster N with Brian Herta Motorsport, Mason Filippi. Mason, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
So for those that don't remember, Mason, I said the number 98 car because last year we had a guest and good friend of mine, Michael Lewis on. Well, Mason and Michael are co-drivers this year in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Sport Series in the TCR car and are fighting for that championship.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy start to the season. It feels like we should be 90% of the way done, but we're only halfway there, and we have a doubleheader this weekend. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, the doubleheader in Mid Ohio. They still have Petite Le Mans at Road Atlanta coming up, and so it's gonna. We just had Le Mans last weekend, which was kind of crazy watching with no fans there, and
yeah, it's definitely weird watching with no fans. And we have, yeah, Laguna should be fun. Michael and I's home track, Team California representing.
exactly. Team West Coast is the best coast.
Yeah, it is.
So, well, let's go back and let's just kind of discuss how'd you get started in motorsports?
When I was really young, I mean, uh, probably 3.5 years old, I was on the front of my dad's dirt bike. And so as soon as I could touch the ground or almost touch the ground, I jumped on a dirt bike and started there. And then I moved to karts where I did karting for a few years and then jumped into a spec Miata where I learned how to drive stick in the parking lot with before I went out on track. And I had no idea how to drive. I was 13 and a half years old. It was a HPDE day with NASA. Jumped in the Miata, kind of just threw it into gear in the parking lot, and off we went. So that's kind
There you
of
go.
the
Pop the
origin.
clutch and run.
Pop the clutch and run.
So, and then you probably did the HPD days for a couple, to get your provisional license with NASA. And
Yeah, so,
then from there, did you go in straight into the Spec Miata class or?
yeah. So I went from NASA, and I did that kind of the second half of the year. And then as soon as I was old enough to do the SCCA license school, I jumped and went and got my SCCA provisional license, and then went straight into Spec Miata after that. It was like maybe a week and a half after getting my provisional license to go to a race.
So, how old were you when you got your provisional license?
I was 14, so
Okay.
yeah.
So 14, and then you go to an SCCA race, Spec Miatas, you're in probably a class of at least 30 cars with an average age of probably 42 of the
Yeah.
drivers. How's the mindset being a 14-year-old and stepping into a race where, guys are three times your age and probably three times your size at the same time too?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty funny because you get in there and you have your booster seat basically in your chair and you have your seat all the way raked up. So when you go get in, you're the same height as everyone else, but you look around when you get out and you're shorter. And
Yeah.
kind of the mindset though going into the race is I don't know, I didn't want to hit anyone because I didn't want to cause any trouble being so young. That was one thing. And then I also was very, careful with the car, but also I was pretty aggressive because of that karting style. You come from racing where, you do those late moves. And
Yeah.
so it in Spec Miata, it's kind of what you have to do to make the passes anyway, because the cars are fairly equal. And I think that it was a pretty good transition to go from karts to Spec Miatas. So
And I mean, really, I love Spec Miatas, and I always tell people the best way to go experience real racing is go get in a Spec Miata because then it comes down to driver ability,
yeah,
and then, but it's also with these momentum cars, the Boxsters, the Formula Fords, the Miatas, trying to learn how to drive offline is such a big thing with these cars because you'll go into, we'll use Buttonwillow coming into Sunrise. You'll have guys going into the front straight three wide,
yeah,
and you're trying to figure out, okay, am I going to make it because I'm offline or I'm not hitting the apex? Where do I brake and do this?
yeah.
Because if as soon as I brake, I'm jamming up everybody behind me, and they're going to pass me because I lost all my momentum.
Exactly. And it's like, I remember balancing that out because at least I came from tag cards to where the momentum was, it was tag junior, you have to have pretty good momentum, but it's definitely a whole new level when you jump into a Spec Miata and the power to weight ratio is not too good. And I think I specifically remember was it going into it was a T14, 15 at Thunder Hill, the last one before the front straightaway.
Yeah,
And I made this pass on someone, and I kind of go in the corner. I'm on the inside, but they waited, and I was so young. I think it was my first race. I kind of made this like cart pass. I like tried to block them, but they got such a good run coming back on the front straightaway. They passed me back, so I was like, oh, like it clicked kind of right there. And so the
exactly.
second race I was ready, but the first race that weekend I was definitely learning a lot.
So what was your progression then from going from Spec Miata to TCR? Kind of lead us through that way of like, what was your next few steps to get to where you are now? Because you're not that much older from when you started racing, what, 6 years ago?
Yeah,
Well,
so yeah, not too much older, and kind of my family, they've been my biggest supporter. But sometimes we talk about that. They're just like, how crazy, you can look at your phone camera roll and it's like, wait, we were just there. We were just racing Spec Miata just 3 years ago, kind of 4 years ago now.
yeah.
And so after Spec Miata, I did MX5 Cup. I won a Team Mazda Challenge Championship in Spec Miata, which gave me the opportunity to do the Mazda Rotor 24. After that, I went into MX5 Cup, and I did kind of a half season in that and a half season in TCA World Challenge, which is now TC America. And after TCA, I went to TC, to the touring car class. And then the next year after that, they had the TCR class. And that's where I kind of started to drive a Volkswagen TCR, and then the Honda TCR for real time. And then the very last race that year, the 8 hours at Laguna Seca, I got to ride with Brian Hard Autosport at that event. And then after that, I got to race IMSA with them last year and this year in the 21 car, and then this year the 98 car.
So yeah, so I mean, for you, that's an awful, pretty big progression fairly quickly, and kudos to you for being able to do that. There's you all get the people that try to go out and there push stuff, and it takes them 10, 15, years to make it up into the upper echelon of racing. So you definitely have something there. You have the personality, you have the drive, and you'll get it done.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a great progression. I'm so thankful too, just for everyone who's helped me out and supported me to get me to this point, and so thankful to be on such a great team like Brian Hart Autosport, and with Hyundai backing us. It's such a crazy experience, and everyone there is just so nice, and the teammates are so helpful. And so last year, definitely going into IMSA, it was a huge change because endurance racing, the level of competition, and driving with Mark Wilkins and Michael Lewis. I mean, they're so fast, and they're they're awesome, but they helped us so much just to become faster and faster. And every
Yeah.
single track we went to, and all the engineers and everyone just is so supportive, that I'm so thankful I had that opportunity.
Now let's talk about a little bit about the difference between TCA or TC America now and the Michelin Pilot Sport Challenge. Where the TCA races are what, 45-minute long or 60-minute long races, and now you're in 90-minute to 4 hour long races. Um,
Yeah.
how first of all, okay, and I love endurance racing just because you get the most amount of seat time. It's also the bigger toll of endurance on your body. But how was that jump for you going from sprint racing in TCA, TC America to the endurance race?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference would probably be, I mean, the pit stops, those are huge, right? It's something new because, in TC America, if you make a pit stop, that means you're having a bad race.
Yeah.
But, and also, you're driving for much longer. I think I did a couple 25 hours of Thunder Hill, and I was, able to win the E1 class both times. But it's something different when the race is so long, and, 25 hours Thunder Hill, it's not like
Yeah.
25 hours of Le Mans. It's still an incredible race, but and then when you jump in like the 4 hours of Daytona, which was the first race I did in IMSA, it's a battle for 4 hours. And so, instead of battling someone for 40 minutes at TC America, you're battling someone for 2 hours. And, there's all kinds of stops, restarts, different procedures that you have to memorize in your head. Oh, don't go through the pit lane here. Make sure you cross the line here. There's just so many rules. And I think I remember just studying the rule book almost the entire, Christmas, New Year's, roar, the entire time before Daytona, just because I wanted to make sure I did not make any mistakes. with just a funny penalty of just crossing the line
Yeah.
wrong at Daytona, or different things like that.
So Daytona this year, was that your first time racing that track?
No, so Daytona last year is the first time
Okay.
I raced that track. So coming back this year was it was a lot more comfortable because I kind of knew the ropes. I had my gear ready, knew the team, and
I
you
mean,
know,
Daytona is a very intimidating track. You look at the track, you're like, oh, okay, it's a NASCAR track. How intimidating or hard can it be? But that track, I mean, coming down the front straight, and banking, going into turn, the little turn sections of 1, 2, 3, and 4, or coming from full bore to slamming on your brakes.
yeah, it's
It can be
definitely
very intimidating for the very first time.
it was. I remember the very first time that I went that track, it was actually raining, and they said, "Oh, we don't know. We're gonna test no ABS and ABS." And it was the first time I drove the car, and it was the first time I saw the track. It was my first time with the team, and so they're like, "All right, here you go." And so I remember going out there, and you drive it on the simulator. You do laps and laps and laps, but as soon as you're out there, everything's different, and your reference points are different, and so
Yeah,
obviously the simulator helps you learn the turns and different things like that. But when you go out there and it's raining and then you cross the line of the paint and you're like a little crossed up, you're like, oh yeah, you're like, I'm here. Like it's time to go now. And so
exactly.
that's crazy experience.
So let's talk about that sim a little bit, because as we know, 2020 has been a very interesting year for everybody, whether you're a racer or not. But I know that they decided to come out, and I don't. What did IMSA do any sanctioned sim racing? Or because I know that GT or SRO America had their E-Race series, and then of course you had the great E-Race series with Ryan Eversley and Sean Heckman. The Thursday Night Blunders, which was
Yeah,
absolutely hilarious. And if you haven't watched those, go back onto YouTube and watch those races. They were great.
races. Yeah, IMSA actually had their own too, and it was crazy because you're racing against the GTLM guys, and you're in kind of like their car, and the BMW engineers are actually engineering their iRacing cars. But Michael and I actually came up with this thing, and we're Team Avocado this year because of being
Yeah.
from California, and so we
Don't forget
ran,
to get your Team Avocado shirts.
yeah, Team Avocado T-shirts. We made those over quarantine as well, and so we had bright green cars with avocado emojis all over them, and we jumped into these IMSA official races, and we've gotten a lot better at the sim, but I remember
Yeah.
the beginning, and Michael's really good at the sim too, and so we had our engineer Justin, our data engineer. He would be on there with us. He's clicking the buttons for our car and make sure we have the right pit stops like every time. We're on a Discord chat and we're taking it like extremely serious. And I remember like, we'd be going and it'd be a great race, and all of a sudden we get dumped by someone and we would get so mad at like the person, even though it's an iRacing race, we're just still get so mad. We're like, oh come on. And but it was definitely a fun time and entertaining to say the
Yeah.
least.
I mean, it was so much fun to watch. I know that, like you and Michael taking it seriously, but then you had some other guys coming in that were just like, oh, I could just hit the reset button.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, wait, hold on. This is where I had the problem with Sims, is because you do get those drivers that are like, okay, I get the reset button. So if I mess up on this turn, I'll just hit reset and try over. It's like, no, why don't you just finish your lap and then come back and do it, actually practice doing it over and over instead of just resetting it and oh, okay.
Yeah, that's so. Yesterday, Michael and I were like, "All right, we're gonna go out. We're gonna do Mid Ohio and F1 car." And we spent hours doing this the night before too. And we're like, "We're just gonna do long runs now. We're just gonna go as long as we can without making a mistake." And so, but you'll eventually like start laughing too hard and mess up a turn or something, and it's like, "Oh, we want to reset." And so yesterday we made sure we didn't reset, but we still want to because it's so easy to just hit escape.
Exactly. So what was it like driving which F1 car, first of all, did you drive around in Ohio?
Yesterday we were driving the McLaren F1 car. Just got an update with some tire stuff from iRacing, and so it's pretty fun.
So like their modern day McLaren?
No, it's I don't know which year they have on there right now. I
Okay.
think I think it's like a 2010.
Gotcha. So yeah, I mean, iRacing's been great. It's been very entertaining to watch. Did you do any of the Thursday night blunder races with the dinner with racer guys?
No, I ended up not being able to do any of those races, but they looked like a blast.
Watching those guys that race Le Mans with a GTP prototype car versus I think they had a TCR cars and stadium super trucks or something like that all on track at the same time.
Crazy.
So, but so TCR, I mean, do you have a progression for TCR where you'd like to end up or where you'd like to go?
I would love to drive anything. I mean, any car I get behind is it's amazing, and I definitely have aspirations to drive GTLM, IndyCar prototypes, and they just released some news on the new prototypes that are going to come, and I think they're going to combine with IMSA and
Yeah, the
WEC.
LMDH cars. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that is definitely a huge goal of mine is to make it there, and so I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can to get there, and hopefully it works out.
Yeah, I think those cars should be out and running in 2023, I think is what they said. So I
Oh,
think,
a few years.
with 2020 being, jacking up everybody for testing and development, it just kind of threw everything back a few years. So,
Yeah,
and then there's actually news today that Acura signed with Meyer Shank
I
Racing
saw
as
that.
well as Wayne Taylor Racing.
Yeah, and so it should be pretty cool to see, and it'll be cool to see the Acura prototypes out there again.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. It's going to be weird not seeing Wayne Taylor with the GM car,
Yeah, for sure.
but hey, at least he may end up being reunited with Ricky
Yeah,
as his lead driver. So, but what other cars have you driven besides? I mean, have you dabbled in any circle track, any midgets, sprint cars?
I was able to do a modified test at a Roosevelt Oval, and that was crazy. It was definitely a whole different experience. You get in this. It was a pretty wild car, and so it's 600 plus horsepower, and they're super light. They're just set up to turn left, so I had no idea what I was doing. The guy just said, if you start to get sideways, just don't correct it. That's the only rule he told me. I I remember going out there. I was like did like a couple laps, and then all of a sudden I was like, all right, this is fun. I got the hang of it, and so I was just on the gas and doing lap after lap after lap. And I came out of one turn and I was like completely crossed up. And I remember him in the head saying, don't correct it. But I was already correcting it. It was too late just because it's a natural reaction. I ended up saving the car, but I remember coming in. He was like, why did you do that? You could have put it in the wall. I was like, it's good. It's good. I like the car. So it was fun.
What now? Was that a dirt track or was that a road oval, like a asphalt oval?
It was an asphalt oval.
So I've always wanted to get on a dirt track oval and just really drive a car with no grip and where you just have to really play with the throttle and
Yeah,
just
that
work
would
on your
be
car
so
control.
fun. That'd
So,
be
I mean,
awesome.
you have a couple of tracks up there, up north where you are in Northern California that you probably maybe sneak your way into.
Yeah,
Get a good
that's what I
old
was thinking too.
helmet in hand.
Yeah. Anyone have a car?
Show up with Michael Lewis. He'll show you the ropes.
Yeah, he will. Michael's the best that he does the dirt racing or ride racing too, and he just kills me every time. It's so fun.
Hey, he does have that advantage of being 98 pounds.
Yeah, that's true.
So, uh, so big race this weekend for you at Mid Ohio doubleheader. How are you guys looking in points right now?
Right now, Michael and I are third in the championship. We're 5 points out of the lead, and I think that the car right in front of us, the 21 car, is only 2 points away. So we're this really tight knit group up front. So if someone wins a race and the other person gets third, then I think we'll jump into the championship. It's just kind of like this whole battle. And it's going to be intense by the end of the year.
Yeah. So now I want to get a little bit of advice for driver. Thankfully you're still at the younger age. You make me feel old, but what would be the advice to the drivers that want to be like you and moving up from spec Miata or go karting or Formula Fords and want to make that next step towards pro racing? What would be your advice to them?
I think it comes down to just, hard work and then also just really being able to communicate yourself to teams and also finding those opportunities everywhere that you can and basically don't say no to any car that you can possibly drive. I think that's probably the biggest advice, as well as, always just be confident in yourself and your ability, and but not too confident to where you won't learn from everyone. And I've definitely just every day I go to the track and even off track, I learn so much just from talking to different engineers, different drivers, and especially with my teammates. And so just being able to learn, every day you go to the track, I think, and write down those notes that you learned, and I think that will help you every single day.
So yeah, and ask lots of questions too. That's my biggest thing for people is, don't turn down an opportunity, ask lots of questions, be humble, always be wanting to learn.
Yeah, for sure. Those are the best things.
So, and then marketing wise, now has it always been backed by parents, or have you gone out and actually like marketed for sponsorship dollars or ways to go, pay for racing? Because we all know it's not cheap. So
No, I've been fortunate enough to have parents that do help me a lot, and I think most of my years they did help me until like kind of the last few years where I've been able to kind of branch out and find some marketing dollars and also find the right teams and really good opportunities, and I've been really lucky and thankful for that.
now, what would be your advice when it comes to going out and finding those marketing dollars and finding the support from outside sources other than family?
I think that, every dollar helps, and maybe not look for that huge sponsorship, but find a bunch of the smaller ones that will pay for that huge sponsorship, because I think it's a lot easier, and it's really hard in times like now to where it's people are maybe a little bit, the money's going slower because of COVID. But if
Yeah.
you find those kind of smaller sponsorships and add them up and add them up and add them up, if you get $10,000 sponsorships, that's $100,000. So I think being able to do that will help a lot.
Yeah, it's easier to find $10,000 sponsorships than that $100,000 sponsorship.
Yep.
So, well, Mason, I'm gonna let you go because I know you have a busy day ahead of you. You have to plan for get out to Mid Ohio, but I want you to take this time to go through, thank who you need to thank. This is your time. We all understand that racing is not just us, but the people behind us, and this is your moment for them.
Yeah, I really have to thank, my family, first of all, and I also have to thank Brian Autosport Hyundai just for the amazing opportunities they've been giving me. And, I have to thank Open Fender and just kind of everyone who's supported me to get here so far.
So, all right, Mason, good luck to you and Michael in Mid Ohio this weekend.
Thank you.
And where can people come follow you and see what you're up to and stuff like that?
So I'm mostly active on Instagram, and it's at Mason_Filippi, and that's the same as my Twitter handle. And YouTube is Mason Filippi. Instagram, I'm Mason_Filippi. Facebook is Mason Filippi Racing.
So, all right, guys, go check him out, follow him, wish him luck this weekend at Mid Ohio and for the rest of the year. And hopefully him and Michael could bring in another championship for the 98, Hyundai.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, and talk to you later.
Talk to you later.